My name is Daniel Kiryakov, and I will be just giving some introductory and logistic remarks. The session will be recorded. All of your questions can be typed in the Q&A box. If you have some issues, write us directly to my colleague Nadezhda, myself, and Petya, for example. And without further ado, I'm glad to pass the relay to the CEO of AmCham Bulgaria, Peter Ivanov, for his opening remarks. Enjoy the session and best of luck to all.
Thank you, Danny. So for those who doesn't know me, and I quite doubtful that somebody doesn't, I'm Peter, and I'm CEO of AmCham in Bulgaria. I spend a lot of time in the ICT industry, but today is not about me. This is about our partner IBM, who is one of the founding member of the chamber. Many people are thinking about IBM that this is the, old fellows who established 100 years ago and stuff like that, who, by the way, created this industry, for those who doesn't know that. And many other things would be absolutely not possible if the IBM would not exist in this world. From other side, I know and I have seen and checked all of the people who is coming to the seminar today, and many of them are quite knowledgeable about the industry. I see the partners, I see the customers, but let me say a couple of words here. If you haven't seen, there were tremendous change inside IBM for the last decade, I would say. And I had the privilege to see how this company from the pure hardware vendor actually went to the solution level, and today is one of the most modern cloud provider in the world. I had the privilege, together with all of my colleagues from AmChams in Europe, we have an organization called American Chambers in Europe, 45 actually chambers, some of them 110 years old, like in Germany, France, Italy. We have been in Boston, and we visited the IBM Watson Center. And I had the privilege to see the artificial intelligence and how it's working on the health industry. But you would say, what is the connection with the security? It's very simple. Many people believe that security and cyber security, this is some people are sitting, putting the code and stuff like that. Quite opposite. Actually, guys, this is about the policy, this is about the artificial intelligence, this is about the sharing of information. I believe that basic knowledge, there is people here who are much better experts than I am. So without any further ado, I just wanted to mention one more thing, because maybe some of you missed that. About 3 or 4 years ago, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, IBM acquired a company called Red Hat. If somebody doesn't know that, this is one of the companies which is actually make the enterprise ready, the open source solutions. And by this, IBM today can offer you the full stack of the products which can maintain the modern digital economy. And today we're going to hear about the security. So without any further ado, I would like to present you the new country leader of IBM, not quite new anymore, who is actually the new board member elected, still not confirmed by the General Assembly of AmCham, George Ganev. And this is my real privilege because I have seen his speech before the election. And if I may say something, this is absolutely the new culture where he cherishes his team, his people, and he understands. And good for the new leader is that he knows that he can achieve through others. And this is what I have seen. George, thank you very much for organizing that. It's a good moment to introduce you as well. Go ahead. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much. I hope you hear me well. I hope you're healthy and your families are good as well. As Peter mentioned, I'm Georgi Ganev, and since July last year, I took over IBM Bulgaria business. I want to address you with for a few minutes and to tell you where IBM is today and to link to our further discussion today, security. And I'll start from where Peter discussed. IBM, it's almost 110 years old. And we are still in this world because we continuously change and transform. And we are in this, again, transformational, cultural change. And if you think of IBM before as the closed organization that it's running its business on mainframe and hardware, and it's looking to lock down customers, we are far, far, far away from that now. Today, and as Peter mentioned, we bought Red Hat for that purpose. Red Hat is a super open culture company that is stopping innovation from open source, because innovation in the world today, guys, comes from open source, comes from the community. There are 8 million developers in this community. So what IBM is doing today, it's opening, trying to build community and ecosystem around itself. And this ecosystem, we are focusing to develop it in four key directions. One is modernization. Why modernization? Because our customers today are looking to modernize their legacy systems and are looking to innovate building new applications. And the business today, it's about applications. If you look at your phones, you're running on applications. And what you want from an application is to have an easy to use, frictionless experience. And modernizing is about you being able to tap to innovation from open source anywhere you want. Doesn't matter the cloud platform, doesn't matter if it's your data center. And this is what we do through OpenShift. This is our hybrid cloud platform, which will allow you to innovate anywhere. And the added value of the platform, it's not only that it gives you to innovate anywhere, but it allows you to run one and the same operating model everywhere in any cloud or any data center around the world, which is allowing you to have a single operating model in building applications, which are for your customers, running these applications and managing and deploying these applications. And this is crucial for every business today. As I said, the business is in applications nowadays. Okay. The second big area, it's about data. In order to bring really experiential type of usage of your application, you need to bring the data close to your customers. You need to bring it in these applications. And this is an area where we are expanding our ecosystem and our partnerships beyond the normal that you would see in IBM. As I said, we are becoming more and more open. And we have built IBM Cloud Pack for Data platform, which has all the capabilities from storing data to artificial intelligence and everything in between, managing quality and governance of data. And we do that also with partners, huge pipeline of partners, like Cloudera for big data that are running on the same platform, like databases like Postgre and Mongo that are more modern, and partners like Palantir that are on artificial intelligence side. This is just to give you a clue how we work and how more open and how different we are in the way we operate today as IBM. And just to give you one thing, because it's closer to you, many of you know that HP and IBM has been, big competitors in the past. Just 10 days ago, on the system side, which is hardware side, IBM and HP have signed, agreement that HP will sell IBM Elastic Storage for their high-performance computing systems. So this is just to give you a clue where we are going. We are no longer looking, to lock and to overtake everything. We're looking for ecosystem and partners so that we serve the customers, so that they are able to innovate and deliver faster to their customers at the end of the day. Third very important topic, automation. You cannot do really, time to market if you are not automating your business. And this is where we are putting a big focus around automating your processes, digitizing your paper, robotic process automation, and areas like this, where we are very focused and we have very strong offerings. And last but not the least, all these areas like modernization, data, and automation need security. And on the other side, security needs automation and artificial intelligence, as Peter mentioned earlier. And this is the linkage. All these areas are interconnected, And the customers are looking for that. They're looking for flexible architecture where they innovate, which is through modernization. They're looking for artificial intelligence to give experience to their customers, and they're looking for automation to be faster to market. And on top, they're looking for all this to be secure. And in security, we apply exactly the same principles of openness and building ecosystem. Because security is a game of partnership and community. You cannot be alone against the bad guys because there are a lot. And if you think that even we as IBM can beat all of them, we don't. We believe that we can do that only through solid and strong partnerships by building a platform where we allow our partners from other vendors to work with us and innovate together. And this is where I pass for more details and interesting discussion to my colleague Lubomir, who is running our security business for the region. Lubo, please take it from here. Thank you very much for joining our conference. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be glad. Thanks.
All right, Joro, thanks a lot really for the good kickoff, nice kickoff, telling shortly the IBM story. I mean, for all the kind of the products, things, etc. Since I see a lot of new people, a lot of people which we are not familiar, I would like to talk a little bit on IBM Security, being one of the, we name them like a startup company in IBM, etc. As you said, new things in the cloud, in data, and so on. But I would like to start with some facts which most of you might not know. For example, not all the people know that IBM are the largest security vendor on the planet. We're a very mature organization with deep resources and expertise to help and to solve the hardest cybersecurity challenges out and to deliver client-driven outcomes. The top industry analyst companies, including Gartner, Forrester, IDC, are ranking IBM as a leader across 12 different security mature segments. The people, actually the employees engaged with IBM Security around the globe are around 8,000. And in order to enhance our security solutions and services, we invested substantially in the brightest minds in the business and the best of the best 3 technologies, including 20 security acquisitions since 2002, if I'm not wrong. Our security operations centers and X-Force teams are monitoring more than 70 miljarder security events per day. This is a huge, huge, huge number. And this is only IBM who can deliver global visibility and industry experience to help detect threats and reach out your desired outcomes. So our integrated products and services are supported by hundreds of open integrations, leading analysts, AI and orchestration capabilities to understand, to reason, learn, and respond to threats. But this what I'm talking about is globally, generally. Bulgaria, IBM Bulgaria being Bulgaria generally being a small country and having the presence here of IBM and the ability to support our customers is something precious. But today this is about the discussion is about the technology, about our experience, about how we understand the things and how we are passing this knowledge to our customers. Because we believe that each and every customer is on a different maturity level in his security journey. And I'm very happy and glad today that we have Mike Ho here in Bulgaria. Hi, Mike. I would like to introduce him with a very few words. He is actually Security European Threat Management Director. He is working with a lot of customers, and the good things compared to a lot of people who, you know, just preparing the programs, doing the strategy for IBM, and so on and so on. Mike is working constantly with customers. And this value which Mike is bringing here is this integration between what actually the customers are looking for, what they actually are looking for their programs, security programs to develop, and how we can help them and sort out all these problems in issue and help them in their journey. So, Mike, welcome to Bulgaria. We are all looking at you. Hope next time see you live. But now I'm passing to you and looking forward on letting you prepare for us.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Georgi, and thank you, Lubomir. Yes, I'm not physically in Bulgaria. I'm sitting in my lounge in Dublin, Ireland, but one day I'm sure I'll get over to see you guys and meet your clients. Okay, so I think I'm going to take the next 45 minutes. I'm going to talk about cybersecurity. So let me just share my screen, and my screen sharing function is not on. Can somebody set that up, please? I'll just let me do it. I'll tell you a little bit about myself while I'm waiting for that. I have been in the threat and security space for quite some time, and maybe not. Let me just show my screen, and maybe not the cybersecurity side of the house. I used to run worldwide emergency management for IBM. So I don't think IBM used to like me much because they would send me places like Fukushima to work with the Japanese after the nuclear disaster, the Philippines to work on Orlando disaster, Jordan to work on the refugee disaster from Syria. I'd be in Rio de Janeiro working on the landslide disaster. So IBM used to say, yeah, you've got a problem, it's emergency, there's a lot of threat, yeah, send Mike. So I spent for a while doing that. And then I moved after emergency management. I ran national security and worldwide policing investigations. So, working with financial crimes, working with human trafficking, narcotics, anti-bribery and corruption. So IBM has some amazing solutions that we work with our quite confidential clients and financial clients to stop the bad guys. So then I progressed then into, I said, I kind of know bad guys, be it things like the Jordan area or the Rio de Janeiro with the riots, and I kind of know the national security, law enforcement, so on. So bad guys are bad guys. So it was a natural progression to move on into cyber, because no matter what we talk about cyber security, there's still a bad guy on the other side of that keyboard. There's somebody trying to abuse your system and get in. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experiences, but also what types of processes, what types of products and solutions you might wish to consider. So we will talk a little bit about, I'll discuss how we got here today. Why do we have cybersecurity? I'm going to demystify cybersecurity in hopefully 5 minutes or less. And then I'm going to talk about, if you want to start a journey, be it that you're a business person, a technical person, you're maybe the COO who says, I need to keep my organization running. Cybersecurity is very important to me because I can't have these cyber aggressors come in and shut down my manufacturing organization or take my ATM system offline. As a COO, my job is to generate opportunities and operations for my business. So I'll then talk a little bit about how we do about that. So it's going to be a very conversational type solution. I dived in and out of some technology and not. So as Peter said, IBM pretty much invented cyber security, but we actually invented IT security a little bit before then. Back in 1984, when we came up with the ATPC, which was our very first personal computer, we realized that people could gain access to your computer by just switching it on. So we actually went down the road in Poughkeepsie, it's upstate New York, and we got a locksmith to install a barrel lock. And we actually came up with this advertisement that this barrel lock now lets executives sleep soundly at night because you can lock out your PC. Wasn't that fantastic? 37 years later, the business is now worth $150 billion worldwide dollars in service providers alone. And that's just not barrel locks, it's a few more things than that. So how do we get there? How do we go from a simple key lock on a PC produced in 1984 to hundreds of billions of dollars of industry protecting us against bad guys. So I'm going to show you how we did that. So we started back in the 90s where we started personal computing and we started locking computers. We even had locks on our disk boxes. And then eventually we started, the Microsoft of the world started to come along and put password protection on our files, our Excels, our documents. We had password protection on our BIOS systems and so on. But again, kind of limited, because if you ever wanted to break into a document, a Microsoft document, all you have to do is turn the document into a text file and it would be printed there, your password. Or likewise, if you were to put in a boot disk, the system would bypass all the security and go in. So again, limited enough. It was more a deterrent. And smart guys really hadn't come up of age. But then in the year 2000, this is what QRadar actually was first developed in 2001 in Canada. We started to see add-ons like putting into our networks and our hubs and so on in our security. So security started to get more pervasive. It started turning up in a lot more than just laptops. It turned up in servers, it turned up in network equipment and so on. And then in 2011, with the rise of the smartphone, everything started to become connected. So your phone could talk to your email, could talk to your maybe heating system at home and so on and so forth. And clearly we had to make sure this was secure. So security started to get onto devices and get onto networks that weren't even in industry. They were your home industry. And now in 2019, computing is ubiquitous. And therefore security has become ubiquitous. In other words, it's all over the place. Some places stronger than others, but unfortunately, the IT solutions continue to grow, and therefore, Peter had mentioned AI is growing, quantum computing is growing, IoT, Internet of Things, operational technology. So our advancement in IT and OT technology is constantly increasing, and we have to remain constantly moving forward with our security. But the real reason we have to do this is not because IBM is a brilliant technology company. We are. It's because our bad guys are becoming more sophisticated, and they're becoming now that I think the real shift happened in 2017, where more money was made in cyber crime than was made in illegal narcotics. So illegal narcotics roughly makes around $475 billion a year. Well, cyber went to $510 billion a year. So things have really got real. And we don't do this again for the technology. We do this for 4 different reasons to protect revenue. We have to stop cyber criminals stealing our revenue, i.e. coming in and maybe taking our credit cards, taking our bitcoins, taking our financial transactions. We also have to now protect our solutions because the regulators say it. If you have a data breach, you have 72 hours to tell the GDPR team. And if they believe that you didn't do enough to protect personal data, you can be fined a significant amount, even up to 4% of your gross income of your organization, which would kill a business. Reputation, if we don't protect, imagine if people find that organized crime is stealing stealing money from our organizations, or allowing our organizations such as social media to propagate hate crimes, to propagate human trafficking and so on. Well, and to break into people's accounts. Well, I sure as hell don't want to be onto a media site that's allowing organized crime abuse that. So I'm going to pull away from that site. And then, of course, we have to run our operations. So there's huge reasons why our security has to increase. It's not because of our technology, it's because of the increase in the bad guys. So let me just explain what that means. You know, I always find these pictures funny. A lot of people think that it's 16-year-olds sitting in the bedroom, drinking a can of energy drink at 2 a.m, deciding, oh, I'm just going to hack in and attack a bank, or hack in and attack a traffic system. It's not. It's organized crime. Organized crime have quotas. Organized crime have return on investment. Organized crime invest in very, very good systems. Organized crime do their recon, and unfortunately it's quite easy to do recon on companies, which I'll explain later. And then when they attack hard, and they look for that payback. So they're quite happy to pay tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on information about a company, on their technology, buying servers, figuring out passwords, renting cyber aggressors and then attacking and hitting hard. So just be aware of that. We are up against a very, very organized threatscape. Secondly, people think that the amount of time an attacker stays in your organization makes you more vulnerable. Not the case. Usually when I want to get into an organization, I want to go slow and low. So sometimes attackers will stay on our organizations for months and months and months, just slowing down and getting through them nice and quietly. So unfortunately, these guys are going to try to blend in with the background information and disappear. And I'm going to show you how we can try to stop that. For those of you who are familiar with security, we use the word indicator of compromise. I personally hate that word. Indicator of compromise means you have been attacked. You have been kicked in the posterior, for want of a better word. In other words, you are cleaning up the mess. The much better thing you want to do is indicators of concern. Before the cyber aggressors can work through their network, figure out a way of attacking, grab your data and run away with it, you're spotting these concerns and you're saying, I'm stopping them there. So again, I'll talk a little bit about that. The other thing is all attacks are known. There is no such thing as an unknown attack, which we call an attack vector. Once I come onto your network, once I move through your network, I am known. I have been seen by various network devices. Whether you have written something in your cyber defense to spot that abnormality is different. So everything is always known, but is it understood? So therefore we have to figure out, well, how can I stop these aggressors going slow and low with their very small signals, and I can actually understand them and say, whoa, that's an attack signal. The other thing is also, some people believe, well, you know, I've got good compliance, I must have good cybersecurity. Compliance and cybersecurity have nothing to do with each other. Compliance is making sure the regulators are happy with your operation. The bad guys don't care about compliance, couldn't care less. So just saying you're in compliance, of course you have to satisfy the regulators, but the bad guys don't play fair. So again, be aware that compliance and protection are very, very different items. And finally, there's no such thing as being unlucky. The amount of people, like when I work with, say, well, I was unlucky, I got cyber attacked. I look at them and I don't, if they're a customer, I wouldn't say it to their face, but I just say, there's no such thing as being unlucky. You are unprepared, period. So therefore you have to take therefore the reality and myths are key. This is something that we have to really, really address hard. And it's really difficult because there's just too much to do, too many vendors, complex and alerts, and I'll show you that in a moment what I mean. But the cyber, as Peter had said and Gregory has said, the business of IT is always expanding. It's getting larger. It's getting more innovative every year, and we have, we're moving into the digital scape aggressively, and IBM is doing that, of course, with the Red Hat enterprise systems. But unfortunately, as our commercial IT enterprises continue to grow and grow, well, guess what? The threatscape continues to grow and grow. As we build new commercial opportunities, the threatscape continues to build new cyber aggressing opportunities. So we have to always be aware of that. So what we'll talk about is, it really is, cyber is a defense approach using by linking all our cyber activities to ensure we constantly stop the gaps that the bad guys who are constantly evolving can come on in. So in other words, we know that the threatscape will evolve and we have to evolve, but we have to evolve faster, and we definitely have to move faster than the speed of threat. Okay, so I'm going to step back a little bit. And one of the things I said is, I kind of explained the why. It's out there, it's going to exist, it's never going away. That's the why we have cybersecurity. I said I'm going to demystify cybersecurity in 5 minutes or less. So here we go. For those who haven't worked in cybersecurity but would like to know. Number one, we had a PC in 1984. We then came along and we connected PCs together around 1985 using what's called a token ring. And it would pass information back and forward to PCs. This was the very first network. By doing this, we were able to share information, but we let the very first vulnerability in. I'm sharing information with this person. Well, if this person decides to take that information and sell it, well, what I have then is I've got an insider. So the very first time I ever connected something to a network, I opened up a vulnerability, opportunity to do things better, but opened up an opportunity for people to be vulnerable. So what we did then back in the late 80s, we started to connect all these devices together into what's called a switch. And now all these devices could talk together. Fantastic. And what we did then was that, well, the engineering department wanted to have their network. We called local area networks. The HR department, the finance department, great. And then people said, well, you know what? We probably want to start to talk with each other. And we want to talk with our servers who might have applications we all share, which could be an email. And we want to talk with our storage because we want to keep all our confidential in our data. So what we did by connecting these networks together, we went through a router. And this kind of design has been around for the last 30 years. This topology with switches and routers and devices has been around. And it's evolved a little bit with mobile and so on. And what happens with this? We pass what's called a package around. And the package tells us where's the destination, so where's it coming from, where's it going to, what's it carrying, what's it connected to, and so on. And then the big thing happened in the early 90s, mid 90s. We got to what's called a proxy server, and a proxy server lets us connect to the World Wide Web. So suddenly our networks became WAN, wide area networks. But unfortunately, bang, reality struck. The bad guys realized, whoa, I can abuse this system for my gain. And it forced us in the early 90s to put in protection on our devices, protection on our servers, protection on our storage, protection on network devices. Then as the mobile came along, protection on our mobile devices. We call this the transactional tier. In other words, if I see something that's abnormal in my network, I kill it. Hey, Mike, what's an abnormal thing? Say if somebody logs in from North Korea. We do not do business with North Korea. Kill it. Say somebody rotates a password 5 times a second. Well, that's unusual. Kill it. Say somebody going against a HR database and they actually work in the shipping department. Kill it. So we actually, and these are called rules. So we have rules that keep our network safe. It filters out abnormal and non-normal behavior. And then, of course, we put in the firewall. So this is our transactional system. Now, you might have heard, well, Mike, how can these get attacked? And I'm going to give you, again, a little bit more technology, a little bit of stuff to make you dangerous when you talk. You could have a DOS, which is a denial of service. So somebody would attack you by coming up and throwing stuff at your firewall, so blocking the firewall and nothing else in. And you say, well, what good is that? Well, if I do that, I ring you up and say, you now can't do any more business because I've stopped you talking to the internet. If you give me 7 Bitcoins, I'll remove the denial of service. Starts a ransomware. The next thing is, as a ransomware, I eventually get in and I lock up your storage and I say, well, I've encrypted everything. You will never be able to read any more of your files unless you pay me 7 or 8 Bitcoins. Funny enough, it's usually less than 10 Bitcoin. You know, Bitcoins now are running at 50,000, which is 500,000, because they want you to pay, because as soon as you pay, they give you the keys. Why? Because it's good for business. If I lock up a company in Sofia tomorrow and you pay, and then you go then to say Athens, and the company says, if you pay these guys the ransomware, they will give you the key. Because if the guys didn't give you the key, then you say, don't pay them because they're never going to give you the key to open up your ransomware. So ransomware sits on there. Phishing is where I pretend to be somebody I'm not, and I try to get you to give me information. Malware attack is where I try to get in through your network and plant a bomb that will flow through the network and hopefully steal information from the network. Drive-by attack is where I just run information against your websites, because you have to have external ports to let people come on to your internal websites or your websites of your company. Well, I'm looking for any type of weakness in those websites that might let me into your network. It's called a drive-by attack. SQL injection is I tell the server, hey, just give me all your information, please. And this has happened, unfortunately, with huge companies worldwide. And the server believes that it's a legitimate request and offers itself up. And then finally, man in the middle. I just put in a router that you think now you're on the IBM router and you decide to write your email, but you're actually on a router called IBM 2.2, which we don't recognize, but you think it is and you move through. So these are where the attacks happen. Anyway, I'm going to continue because I want to tell you how to build a solution. Tier 1. Tier 1 is keep and kill. Huge amount of suppliers out there that figure out what's right, what's wrong, kills it. What we do is we come along and we take what we call the logs. So a log is when anything happens inside a system, it generates a log. So it's just like if you're familiar with the English obsession of train watching. A train goes by, I know it's going from London to Edinburgh, I know what time it starts at, I know what time it finishes at, and I know what type of train it is. That's what a log is. A package starts here, it goes to here, I know what time it goes by, I know the size of the package, and so on. So we collect thousands of these events every second, and we bring them in as logs. And now we know everything that's happening. Remember I said earlier, everything is known. So if there's a bad guy somewhere in this network, his footprint, and let's say it's a him, his footprint is somewhere in my logs. I still haven't discovered him yet. So what I do is I collect the logs, and from the logs, I run rules against them. And I question, hey, did anybody come in at 2 in the morning last night and go against the HR database? Because usually nobody accesses the HR database at 2 in the morning. Or did anybody multi-question my financial database or try to move data around? And that's a rule. So I actually say, well, what is abnormal and what's normal? Going against the financial database between 9 and 5 during the day from the financial department, normal. Going against it from an external address, from an external PC at 5 in the morning, abnormal. And that's what the rules do. So it tries to look across the logs and figure out what's bad. And we use this called a SIM, a Security Information Event System. And what we're doing here is we're called correlating. We are correlating data. And we talk in terms of events per second. And an ordinary sized company could have 30,000 events per second. So imagine 30,000 events per second. That's multiply that by 3,600 times. You get into the millions, if not trillions of events per year. And our systems have to figure out inside those trillions of events, what are abnormal, what are normal. Now we get into analyzing. And this is where we talk next, is that you have to have a dashboard that can relate what's happening in your SIM system to the humans. So we have dashboards. You have to be able to say, well, because I've got multi-attacks, I just can't make this stuff up as I go along. I have to have what's called a SOAR, a Security Operation and Response System. This is a case management or a workflow system. Once I'm attacked, who does what, how they do it, and so on. And you constantly refine those plans. Remember I said I was in emergency management? Well, when I worked with Hawaii in their emergency management response to tsunamis, we actually knew exactly, once the tsunami alarm went off, who did we call, what do we do, what do we do with the population, did we shut the storm gates, we opened up shelters. So we had a complete playbook ready to roll as soon as we heard the tsunami warning. This is exactly what a SOAR system does. As soon as we see an attack revving up, we get into protection mode. We then have to do other things like bring in threat intelligence. We look at if a bank has been attacked in Singapore, we're a bank sitting in Warsaw, we should definitely think about what attack has happened. And if it happens to us, what should we learn about the Singaporean bank and get ready to go? We call this threat intelligence. User behavior, unfortunately, the bad guys don't live outside our organization. They can be insiders as well. We have to do insider. Peter had talked about artificial intelligence. Once we understand the rules, we can start to tell our computers what to apply and to become creative on the rules. And then we have to do things like forensics insights. Sometimes we're too late. There's been a scene of a crime, and we have to rebuild the scene of the crime to figure out, well, who exactly and what did it. And this all protects what is our network. But there's actually a lot of other systems that you have to think about. And again, I don't confess that you should know these in depth, but penetration teams is once you've designed your system, you've set up your rules, you've locked everything down, you invite an IBM team along and say, hey, you're what's called the Red Hat team. We call them Red Hats, not Red Hat, the new company. And they come in and they try to break into your network. They actually don't even tell your security folks. It's mainly your CTO who says, will you come along and see, can you break in? See, have I got it done? So we have teams who are called, white hat, and they try to attack your network to find the vulnerabilities. And then finally, we have teams that are called the incident response team. Hey, I run a telecommunication company, and I've been ripped in by ransomware, and all my communication towers are locking up. I'm not a cyber expert. Well, you reach out to IBM, and we actually have worldwide cyber experts who can come in and work with your team to try to unfix the damage that the cyber aggressors have done. So there's a lot to unpack here, but I'm just showing that you always have to think, and unfortunately the bad guys get better and better all the time, so must we. But we're probably much, as I said, as Lubomir said, we're one of the biggest, if not the biggest, security company on the planet. And we're big because we cover all the aspects. And the aspects we don't cover, we actually work alongside some great partners as well. So we really do, when we say we have a unified security system and we know the processes and procedures and the products, we really do. And we work with some amazing partners. So that's pretty much cybersecurity in a nutshell, folks. It's understanding the small little packages moving through the networks, figuring what they're doing, figuring if they're abnormal, and then building an ecosystem around them to figure out, well, how do I stop them? How do I respond to them? So when I talk to a client, I said, well, the first thing you need to do is collecting your logs. Tell me what's happening in your network and figuring out. Then you have to run those logs into a security information management system, which is your rules. And our security system comes out of the box 650 rules. So you can plug it in and start her up. The next thing then is you have to, because you might have a team of 10, 20, 30 analysts, you have to manage them in a workflow case management system, like you would do in a manufacturing site, where you have to have standard operation procedures on what you do. Well, this is what the SOAR system does. You then have to be able to look at threat intelligence. Well, I want to know just because I don't want to know what happens to me when it happens. I'd like to know other industries who are getting attacked. And if they're getting attacked, what are they doing to defend themselves? Tell me about that, because I want to learn from others. Even though they've got they've been the misfortune of being attacked, at least I can take some goodness from them and understand how that attack happened and maybe stop that vulnerability in my organization. That's called open source intelligence, and you can buy that type of intelligence from IBM or from other third parties. Deep search, you want to be able to search your network, but the most important thing is you have to continually improve your process, because the bad guys want you to stop. The bad guys are hoping that you're going to say, enough, I really don't want to do anymore. Our job here, unfortunately, is to how do I become faster, better, cheaper, and more secure. And IBM can help you that. It's not just about buying product. It's really standing back and going, where's the threatscape going? How am I managing my processes? How am I managing my people? How am I managing my products? And all of this then flows into what we call a security operations center. And this can be one person or hundreds of people. We've seen hundreds of people in the large multinational banks, because so much is at risk. Remember we said, what's at risk? The 4 R's. I've got reputation at risk, I've got revenue at risk, and I've got regulatory fines at risk. And again, it's all about the people, process, and places, and it is the location that we manage all our security. Okay, so I'm going to get a little bit more technical, I think, before we open up the questions and answers. So when we talk about unified cyber defense thinking, we say there's no company that is identical to another company. Everybody has different infrastructure, be it on-premise infrastructure, which is computers in your basement, be it on cloud, because you're renting cloud from cloud providers, you're renting private cloud, you've got OT, operation technology, so I've got control systems running my manufacturing site. So my infrastructure is highly, highly fragmented and distributed, and that's okay. I've got huge amounts of logs coming from that information from different systems, and it's really difficult to try to bring all those logs together. But Mike, what you said about I really should have a SIM system which manages my rules. On top of that, I should have a SOAR which makes sure I'm doing the right thing at the right time. I should definitely be looking external. I also then should be being able to investigate deeper. And this is what we talk about when we talk about in the security platform. You have servers, which are distributed throughout your own organization. You have, of course, existing third-party and IBM solutions that might have been around for many years or are newly involved. So you've got your existing solutions. And then you're saying, I definitely need a platform which will allow me to manage centrally my security, which will give me a complete shield around my organization. And I need to be able to evolve that at the speed of threat. It's not, I want to evolve at my speed. I got to evolve at the speed at which the bad guys are constantly revving up. And unfortunately, in the last year with COVID and lockdown, we've seen a significant increase in attacks coming in against our organizations, both personal and organizations. So you say, well, Mike, just give me another information on the SIM, and you can click on this and you can say, well, the SIM very much is, it's rules. It runs the rules. If the rules go off, it'll try to show them on a dashboard, and it'll say, but it also has automation to say, well, we found a rule. We know that somebody's trying to come in on Mike Kehoe's PC. We've isolated the port, and we've sent Mike's PC to get quarantined. And if it's been affected, we're going to ask the help desk to re-image it. So these are the rules. But these rules are, as I said, the amount of activity could be up to 30,000 events per second. And these rules are running multi rules across those 30,000 events per second, trying to ensure from all the different logs, hey, there's nothing going to go wrong here. So that's the SIM system. But the source system, and this is where you step away from the technology, because what you have to do is you have to map, what do I do? And when I worked with the Japanese, I said, well, unfortunately, yes, you had a tsunami and you had a Fukushima, the nuclear site went off. What was your process to do once the backup generators failed? And they didn't have a process. So we sat down and we had to work on, well, what's the next steps? Who should get called? Where would you, and they say, where would you get a spare generator and so on? So we worked through, unfortunately, the Japanese never put their nuclear power plants back online. But we worked through the process. We test the process. We had a whiteboard session with all the stakeholders. Once we were happy, we coded the process. So this then, back to cybersecurity, we coded the process, which is called a designer. Then we ran the process to say, well, if we get attacked, this is exactly who gets called, what we do, how we shut it down, so on and so forth. If it's a GDPR issue, who do we shut? And then we monitor. And of course, the more times we see attacks, we kind of optimize. We make our process stronger and stronger, because every time we get an attack, we learn from it and we optimize our process. And this is called SOAR. And then SOAR, you put in automation to say, well, why do we have to physically do it? Why can't we just allow our systems maybe shut down a port, maybe remove a user, and so on? And we do. So this is called process engineering. So this process engineering heavily connected inside the SOAR. So you say, well, Mike, I've got my good rules engines. If there is an issue, when I escalate, I organize a defense, but I really want to take a look outside. And what you do is with outside is you can connect to something like X-Force and IBM, and there's other third-party folks who pretty much listen to the world. And when I say they listen to the world, we're talking billions of websites and millions of emails. We're listening to what's happening in the world. And you subscribe to this data and go, I don't want to listen to the world. I happen to be a transportation company in Central Europe, so I just want to know things that are attacking my maybe work schedule systems, fuel depot systems, maybe any type of Wi-Fi systems on buses and so on. So you can subscribe only to what you believe is could affect your organization. So if anything in the big bad world appears, this system will tell your system, hey, you know what, in Taiwan, there was a significant outage on the train system because somebody was able to put a piece of malware that took out the ticketing system. And that's the exact same ticketing system as yours. So you go, whoa, I better check exactly what happened. So with the threat intelligence, you can be told in advance, which is an indicator of concern, hey, pay attention. And from that, you can feed this into your SOAR to say, okay, I have a new workflow that says my ticketing system is vulnerable. I now need to put my cyber team to make sure all my cyber configurations on my ticketing systems are at the very, very highest standard. So the SOAR system will always manage what you need to do in your solution. And then finally, Data Explorer, it can do things like the threat intelligence system can feed the Data Explorer with, say, did you know that this IP is a rogue IP floating around? It's a ransomware IP that's able to lock up your servers. Well, my system automatically can look for that IP address inside my entire organization. So look, hey, I found this IP address that I do know was used as a piece of ransomware in the Philippines. If it comes into Bulgaria, I'm going to have a problem. So what it does is it says, I've already found the IP address. It's sitting on one of the servers. It hasn't opened up what's called a port and sucked in a piece of malware, which will explode inside my server and encrypt the whole thing. So I found this indicator of concern, not because my rules engine found it, is because my threat intelligence had lifted it off a website, which is one of these websites. It had then fed it to my data explorer. My data explorer searched my system and said, whoa, we see the beginnings of a cyber attack. So I hope it's not too technical for you, but you have to start looking at what's called the tactics and techniques of attackers, and how does it relate to you and what you should do. Because you can actually, and I said, the bad guys collaborate so we can collaborate. So for those of you who don't know, there's things out there like the MITRE ATT&CK framework, which tells us what attack frameworks are, what the attackers are looking to do, how they do it, and how you can solve it. And what you use that is you read up on this, and this is a worldwide group of white hackers, which are good guys, explaining these are the latest attacks. And therefore you can start to continue to put this information into your solutions and say, I need to stay abreast. I know the bad guys will collaborate. I need to stay abreast of what's going on, both from threat intelligence, but also what are the tips and techniques I should be using once the attack happens. So I think I'm coming close to the question and answer. So I'm not going to, again, get too technical, but little things that you'll say, hang on, I didn't think that was cyber. The first thing is we should be sharing our information with our executives. An executive, I even before I worked in emergency management, I worked in manufacturing. And every one of my executives that I reported into knew the quality of our product. It knew the quality KPI in the manufacturing side. Why? Because if quality goes down, we produce junk and then we can't ship. So they didn't maybe understand what caused the quality issues, but likewise, they had the amount of goods sold, the orders coming for the day. They also had a KPI to say, this is the quality of our product been produced right now. And they knew it. And if it dropped down, they have a problem. Well, why aren't we sharing this with our executives to say, this is the current threatscape that's affecting our business. We're defending, but we're under serious pressure. We might need you to help us to invest in more product, our people, our process. But we shouldn't have to bring the bad news to our executives the day after a massive attack, and they now have to go on national news to explain. We should be sharing our dashboards with our dashboards that they understand, not high level, but to say, this is the attacks, this is how much overtime we had to do, this is what we think we stopped, but we probably will have to bring in some IBM consultancy, or we probably will have to train our team up differently. So one thing is, when you build a solution, make sure you include as many stakeholders. So that's just an example. So there's many different functions here. Another function I just like to point out is Kanban. For those of you who've studied Japanese manufacturing, well, Kanban allows you to say, because some attacks, we never know when attacks will happen. I'll have huge amounts of attacks coming at the front door. I'll have solved some. I might only have 10 or 15 people in my SOC, even 2 or 3, but I have to constantly work out which area my team should focus on. So it's a way of balancing human resource for a manufacturing site. But we use the Kanban system to way of balancing human resource for the way of investigating cyber attacks. So suddenly you see these are process engineering manufacturing theories that we've actually embedded into cyber defenses. So business intelligence, BI, is a standard tool in any type of business process. Kanban is another tool inside business processes. We then add, as we showed earlier with the SOAR, which is business process mapping. We took a look at threat intelligence, bringing data in from third parties. So once you start to sit back, you actually see that cyber is a system of systems, and just leaving it which is unfair, in the hands of just single cyber professionals who say, well, listen, I really need more help. We're building a solution that has to integrate. We're changing it to fit your digital expansion. You should be as involved to help them out, because the bad guys are hoping that you will silentize, you will fall behind, and you will leave vulnerabilities, because then they're into pounce. And these are the types of attacks. So my probably finishing point, embrace your vulnerabilities. embrace your vulnerabilities, work with your cyber teams work with your management, and try to collaborate as very best as possible. We have try to collaborate as very best as possible with other teams, with events, and so on and so forth. Because really, that's, if we stand strong and stand tall, it's going to be so much more difficult for the cyber aggressors to achieve what they want to do. So just before I hand back to Lubomir, I'd love to show you one thing. You might say, well, Mike, don't get too technical. I mean, I won't. But I'm going to show you an example of how this solution works, how a solution works. This is a type of information you get from companies who supply, hey, keep an eye out for SOFAN. It's a research piece of malware, and it's going to try to break into your organization and steal your $1 billion COVID vaccine. So imagine if I get 50 of these emails every day. I have to read every email, figure out, okay, I know about it, I better read more about it. And I read down through the email, and in the email it says, oh yeah, just be aware that this IP address is the IP address of the attackers. They're out of North Korea. Now, how long is it going to take me to read all this? And by the time I find out they've attacked, well, what a system should be doing is it reads the emails, it sees that there's indicators that they should be concerned about, it takes a look at this IP address, it goes, whoa, I found this IP address and it's actually on board inside my system. Now, it hasn't exploded, it hasn't reached back to the mothership to bring down what is the malware, which will going to cause huge problems with theft of my vaccine. But it's been found. And I say, right, I found it. So what I can quite easily do is just click on it and say, well, where did you find it? And it goes, oh, I found it, and it'll look through all my system. Remember I showed you the picture of going through your entire system, and it goes, I found it, and I'm not going to go through the technology, but I said, I found it in what was called the carbon black. Now, carbon black happens to be my endpoint. Remember the very beginning of the presentation I showed you? The very beginning of the presentation I showed you about locking down your endpoints by putting in endpoint management. Well, it's gone through, it figured a way around there. I said, whoa, how did it figure around there? And it goes, this Karen Henderson, she downloaded it as an email because she thought she was getting free support, okay? It came in, it's now sitting in her email box as one, as this IP. This is her email account address, but it's sitting there doing nothing. But probably later tonight, it's going to explode, it's going to reach out, it's going to grab the payload, it's going to bring the payload back down, and then it's going to have its way. But even before then, by me listening to threat intelligence, and the threat intelligence automatically, like artificial intelligence, reading it, searching it, I've gone into what's called an IOC posture, an indicator of compromise. This thing hasn't been turned vicious yet, but later tonight it will. I'm on top of it. So it really shows that we really need to pay attention to the smallest detections, but oops, sorry about that. To the smallest crimes, but together we can. So I hope you got a good understanding. If we look back on the presentation I showed you, why we're doing, because the bad guys. I told you a little bit about learning about cyber technology in 5 minutes. I told you about the things you have to think about. It's not just, application. You got to think about the process. You got to think about training your people. You got to think about what has happened to other folks and learning from other folks. You got to be part of organizations like the MITRE ATT&CK framework. We have an organization called the Open Security Alliance, which is founded by IBM. And then what you got to do is you got to maintain your security posture the most effective and efficient way possible, because the bad guys are hoping that you're going to give up on it. So hopefully I haven't ended in a bad note, but it really is that straightforward. It is another system that we have to put along unfortunately, that we have to put along beside our commercial systems. We have to put our cyber protection systems in, but then together we can stay safe and we can make sure that we're not going to let the cyber aggressors have it their way. We are going to launch a very credible offense. Okay, Lubomir, it's I think Q&A time if you want to take it.
Yeah, Mike, thank you. Thanks a lot for a nice presentation and for covering so much information in, I don't know, 40 minutes.
It's not my first time doing it, but yes. Okay.
All right. For those of you who noticed that there is a Q&A, panel in the right down part of your screen. So we got already a couple of questions. I'm really encouraging you to put your questions there. You can put them in Bulgarian or in English, doesn't matter. I will try to address together with Mike. So starting with the first one. So Mike, this is, I believe, to you to address that. What are the biggest mistakes the companies are making with data security? It's a quite general question, but I think it's very, very valuable.
Yeah, what the companies are trying to accomplish sometimes is that, and actually let's go back to what we see quite often is that there's too many vendors. Every vendor comes along and says, and don't get me wrong, says you need endpoint protection. Oh, also you need, another company says you need network protection. Another company says you need a SOAR, or you need this or this or this. And it's really difficult to understand what is needed and to stand back and say, no, I need to put my strategy down. I need to put my as is and my to be, and I need to figure out how my people, my product, and processes will all fit together. And that's where I find people sometimes, they tend to, because they don't know, they tend to talk with one of their analysts, and the analyst said, well, I used to work with, I'll give an example of this, Splunk. So I think we should have Splunk because I know it very well. And maybe that's a good starting point. But what happens is then the analyst maybe wins the lottery and moves on, and nobody else understands, well, what is the real value here of Splunk? I'm not quite sure what I should be doing. So don't let the technology be the choice of how you go forward. Stand back and say, well, do my people understand how to use this product? Does this product a solution make sense in the rest of my area? So you really need to have a good strategical focus on what you want to do, and just don't let, because some person has a really good understanding of a certain product, say, well, this is the product we should have. Because again, if that person wins the lottery, they're gone out the front door, and now you've become vulnerable. So you really need to sit down and work out, where do I want to be? How do I want to get there? If I do, my budget softens up a little bit, my people maybe leave a little bit, can I continue to keep my defense level at the level I want? And that's what we've seen. We've seen people reach out to us, go, we're in deep, deep trouble. We don't know what to do next because we've lost certain resources with our folks, or we've changed, and we didn't have a strategy of continual process improvement and keeping a certain level of defense. So think the bigger picture first.
All right. Thank you for this one. And kind of weird questions. What are the biggest actually known unknowns in security? It's kind of a tricky one. I mean, known unknowns, the things we know, but actually we don't know.
I think I put it, I think I said the biggest myth is that you can't use being unlucky as an excuse. You're unprepared is your only reason. So, and you are the people outside that I work with, we work against, don't ever underestimate their sophistication. They are not 16-year-olds and in bedrooms with energy drinks. When I used to work before this with national security and law enforcement, I worked with human trafficking, I worked with illegal narcotics, I worked with anti-bribery and corruption. And the people I now work against in cyber, they are as aggressive, as focused, and as sophisticated as any of the areas when I worked in narcotics and worked in human trafficking. So just be aware that, unfortunately, I don't want to scare, but it's not a matter of, well, we should do this for the regulator. The unknown, the threatscape is real, expanding, and we do have to make sure that we have a credible defense against it.
Right. And you remember probably after the GDPR or the other regulations which went to be quite popular and quite engaging the customers, there was a huge, focus and intention on the responsibility on a very high level, generally, within the companies. So it's not anymore only the IT director or the cybersecurity engaged person to be addressed and to be responsible for that. But still, do you think that the management, the CEO, the CXO teams actually are into this awareness they should be at the moment, based on this what you see in the region, in the environment you're working with?
We have, and I would fully recommend working with Gregory and Lubomir, is that we can show a tailored demo. So if you want to learn more, we can tailor a demo to straight, or we could do a 3-hour workshop free of charge, probably remote on your work site, just to show you your vulnerabilities. But the one that really is amazing, we have a truck, and we call it the Cyber Range, and we drive it around Europe. Unfortunately, it hasn't been mobile recently because of COVID, but you can get on, and whether you're a technical person or a business person, we bring you through a full immersive attack, and we put you under pressure. Now, if you want, you can do this also on our, we don't do it on the truck, we do it over online systems. I've done it, it's amazing. But I think, getting back to your question, how can you, realize what you should be looking at? I would strongly recommend to get onto one of these sessions, and it's not technical, but it really puts you to open your mind up about how well you should be thinking, what you should be doing, what's the reality, and so on. So that would be something that I would recommend to become more engaged, or to learn more from what it feels like a real environment, but it's completely simulated. I would strongly recommend that.
Right. So I'm encouraging still the attendees to put their questions there, since these were the questions we already got. Let's give a couple of more minutes.
Actually, I have a question, Michael. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. I never seen that someone can explain the entire security policy in 45 minutes, to be honest with you. And I have seen something, as I have been in that industry for 25 years. So amazing. What I should say, that you covered the networking security, the security on the desktop, how this process evolve. I believe that information can be shared with our government and many people, because in our country we are suffering from the issue that there is no national cybersecurity policy. People still believe that they can take one team of the software developers and create the cybersecurity for the government. How wrong is that? Looking on your presentation, you explain how important it is to share the knowledge and stuff like that. I had the privilege to go to Cybersecurity Center of Israel in Beersheba, and I have a question to you. What would be your recommendation on the e-government level, on the government level, because we have seen in our country a couple of breaches on the cybersecurity for National Revenue Agency, for the company registration registry, which created significant damage. And we still have the issue, we like AmCham and our vendors with our members, to communicate with the government what is the best strategy. What I have seen in Israel, they drive that on the level of the government, not for all of the threats, but especially for the financial threats. Although each individual bank has their own security platform and their own security policies, those guys in the central government cybersecurity center actually controlling the external threats who are incoming to the country. They're sharing with similar cybersecurity. So what would be, if you understand my question, what would be your recommendation? Build this on the company level only, or having certain government agency or center where you can address the threats from outside and share this with similar agencies around the globe?
A government, there should be a cyber protection government agency, without a doubt, because what I explained earlier, the motivation to break in, of course, could very much be revenue based, but there could be revenge. So we see revenge in insiders, we see revenue, and so on. But the thing that we are concerned about is nation state actors, and we know that that cyber warfare is starting to ramp up at a great deal. It's kept under the covers, but you can see nation states and states that want to damage other states. So you definitely have to have a national security policy that has cyber, but it shouldn't just be to its own self. It should be shared, because remember, you have companies in your country that are called critical infrastructure, and critical infrastructure is your water, is your electricity, is your transportation, is your social security, is your health. So so if a nation state wants to impact on another nation state, well, it might just take out its water system, or it might just affect its health records. So and again, a hospital or health systems are not heavily focused on cyber. So that's where government agencies should be helping these critical infrastructures. But as well as that, they should be saying, well, when I showed you the type of attacks, an attack is an attack is an attack. They should also say, well, there's no reason why I shouldn't be sharing this type of information with my, sharing this type of information with the larger community. And there should be both a public-private partnership to share attack techniques, to share, good stories, bad stories, what works and not works. So yes, there should be a public agency that, number one, is looking after the defense of the country as a whole in case there is national state. Number two, it's definitely helping critical infrastructure suppliers in the state, because you might even have organized crime who just wants to take out a water system, and they might want to go after the financial account of that water system, but in doing so, they could kill half the desalination plants, or kill half the, so they don't care. Attackers don't, once they get what they want, they don't care about burning other parts of the network. And then finally, yes, you do have, it's key, just like Ireland. Ireland has huge, what's called direct foreign investment. And it's key that we keep our direct foreign investment safe and secure. I know Bulgaria has as well. It's got huge opportunities. So we actually do have a cyber council, which helps industries as well to make sure that they remain safe. So we're all in this together. The bad guys want us to break into silos and not collaborate, because they collaborate and they use their best. So yeah, but the other thing is, if you're finding it that it's too it's too political, it's taking too long, there's no reason, like you've just done with the American Chamber of Commerce, that an organization shouldn't set up and say, listen, I want to have a coalition of Bulgarian companies that come together and collaborate in cyber defenses. And there's no reason why that should happen either.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And I just wanted to edit something with the new 5G networks and Internet of Things. This cybersecurity threat is becoming already physical, if you allow me. So far, they can steal from your money, value, some things like that, which is in most cases virtual. In case of the Internet of Things and stuff like that, and we have a digital committee where we should working with all of the vendors, what you just said, for that infrastructure. I see that we have 8 more minutes. But State Department now, and we're working on so-called clean networks, because some countries do the cyber security like they're using this like a weapons. I'm not going to mention names, but imagine that your electrical meter, which is measured from the distance, and actually all of the data is going to the data center somewhere in those countries. Somebody want to shut down the entire electricity of the Western Bulgaria. you can imagine that this will be equally to somebody's launching the nuclear bomb, more or less, for the damage that is going to create it to the network. So those things are becoming even more dangerous in this stage. And thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. Really impactful.
You're very good. I'm trying to pull it up. I had a video of, yeah, look at this. I'm going to show you this. This was I'll turn on the volume. This is a steel plant, and the steel plant was based in Poland. And what happened was, it went up, there was a large steel order of many millions, and it was in a vendoring process. And a German company won the process, and the steel plant in Poland came second. So what they did was, the Polish plant rented a cyber aggressor company to break in and to hack the control systems of the German plant. And the German plant's blast furnace, as you can see, opened its doors and started to destroy itself. And you can see that it was pretty much destroyed the factory. And what happens is, it was funny because when I saw the video, it just towards the very end, you can take a look at the control box that the cyber aggressors we call it SCADA PLC, there it is, that got attacked. Now, what I'm going to tell you here is, of course, so the German company lost the contract because it had to move to the Polish company. But more importantly, the cyber aggressors did not care less if they hurt or killed somebody in that site. They just wanted to take their money based on their attack, and they couldn't care less because they're organized criminals. You know, last week they were doing narcotics or human trafficking. This week they're destroying plants, but they couldn't have cared less about human safety in that plant. So don't ever feel that a cyber attack is all about taking money from your ATMs or stealing your credit card data. It could actually be that it, as you just said, it came as a physical attack against a factory to destroy the factory, so the next factory would get would win the vendor. But it couldn't care less if it maimed or killed anybody in that attack. So just be very aware of the people you're dealing with.
Actually, this is what you have shown us is really shocking. But imagine what will happen with the driverless cars, with the transport automation, lift sensors and all of that. I don't want even to imagine, Michael, because and this is a real serious question, which I believe that a lot of governments still underestimate that the digital economy is not somewhere. It's actually here. And all of this could be reality even tomorrow. And we see its only limitation is in our minds. Technology is already there. And absolutely, thank you very much for that. I wish you do this presentation one more time when we're going to have we need to restart the work of our digital committee. And thanks to IBM that you guys are more than welcome to join us. We would like those messages coming from not only from one vendor, and that's why the American Chamber is good, because if you're going to do these presentations only from IBM name, they're going to say, oh yeah, IBM tried to propagate their vendor solution. No, that's why we are here, and that's why we have a committee where all of you guys need to drive this policy on the government level, and our job is to bring this to the government to understand it, because I have seen a lot of very strange cybersecurity seminars, things, and we need people like you, Michael. Thank you very much for all of your efforts to be with us today. Thank you, George, and thank you the entire team of IBM, because I see many people here. And thank you, Lubo. At least those who I see on the screen, I can say thank you. Amazing thing for me was quite educational. I hope that for many others. Do we have any other questions? Because we have 3 minutes to go.
Well, I was about to show the video that the 45 minutes we went. Before I got cut off on YouTube. I've compressed that down into 12 minutes.
Oh my God.
So if you want, I will share that with you. And it's non-IBM. It's very much just explaining what I explained, but it's not a product push. Hopefully it wasn't a product push, but I will send you on the YouTube link, but the video my presentation, I've compressed to 12 minutes.
Amazing. So we would like to have that, all of us, and we're going to distribute to our channels. So what we're going to do, position this on our webpage, and we're going to stimulate the government and our members to read that. And it's a public, I assume. Yes, Michael?
Oh yeah, it's public at YouTube. Yeah, you can send it around to anybody.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very, very much. Maybe back to George. George, maybe you want to say a couple of words?
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Thank you, AmCham, for the great partnership, for the nice event. Thank you, Michael and Lubo. I want to thank all the participants as well, and I hope we'll have other events like this. At least this is on in my head, so I hope to see you soon and to have such exciting times together. Thank
The
you.
next time, face to face, guys. I need this face to
So I
face.
hope so.
I don't know about you. Thank you very much. Enjoy your afternoon, everyone, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Have a great night. Bye.
Bye bye.